President Trump's White House meeting with Zelensky apparently was even more insane than any of us realized. Just how preposterous did things get? Well, according to the FT, it was literally a temper tantrum level event. Let's talk about it. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Hit subscribe, by the way. Okay, so we know that in a meeting with President Trump, Zelensky really had what he's characterizing as an unproductive meeting, and that's putting it lightly, according to the FT. We know that the outcome was essentially that President Trump told Ukraine that Russia was definitely going to crush them, that Russia's economy was doing great, and that the Ukrainians didn't stand a chance. His source for all this information was Vladimir Putin himself, a known liar and someone who is, well, refuted by simple objective facts on the ground. But President Trump just seems to treat whoever tells him things as completely and totally honest, because he told Zelensky, dude, Putin says his economy's great and his army's really strong and he's going to totally crush you if you don't give him the territories that he wants. Which is weird because, well, that wasn't even what Russia said, right? Because even if Russia themselves said, listen, Trump said, listen, freeze the battle lines, have a ceasefire. And Russia was like, no, we're going to keep conquering Ukrainian territory because their goal is to annex all of Ukraine, right? Or rather to vassalize Ukraine, even if they don't conquer it, to break the ability of the state to resist. And so this is really weird that it appears that, again, even Trump appears to have misremembered basic parts of his own conversation with Putin. Incredibly bizarre. But then it apparently descended, according to people inside the room, many times into a literal shouting match, with Trump, quote, cursing all the time. They added that the president tossed aside maps of the front line in Ukraine, insisted Zelensky surrender the entire Donbas region to Putin, and repeatedly echoed talking points the Russian leader had made in a call a day earlier. Though then Trump later endorsed a freeze of the current front lines, which, of course, Putin almost immediately refused, which is, the whole thing is absolutely bananas, right? Zelensky was hoping to get the White House to receive Tomahawk cruise missiles based on Trump's tweet literally like 2 weeks ago, in which he said that with the right long-range support, Ukraine could absolutely retake not just all of their contest, not just the Donbas region, but also all of Crimea. A total 180. With no change in the battlefield, by the way. There is no circumstantial changes to this. And again, it apparently sounded like a much more contentious encounter than even the televised one in February. And this is, again, like European officials briefed on the meeting said that Trump appeared to have adopted many of Putin's talking points verbatim, even when they contradicted literally like his own recent statements about Russia's weaknesses, which is insane. Trump literally knew differently and still repeated Putin talking points. It's like Trump said, this red line, I don't even know where this is. I've never been there, Trump said, according to an official. Trump also said that Russia's economy is doing great. And literally just a few days ago, Trump said Putin's economy is going to collapse. Like, what even is this? And here's the thing, guys. Like, Trump also told Fox News that Putin was, quote, going to take something. He's won certain property. That's not how this works. It's not Putin winning property. It's another country's territory. It's not private property. This is some of the most insane things, right? And remember, this is after Putin pretty badly snubbed Trump after Trump rolled out the red carpet for him literally in Alaska. And since then, Putin has refused to really concede on anything. He's only ramped up his attacks on Ukraine. He's offered no venue for peace talks. He hasn't met with Zelensky. He really humiliated Trump, and Trump just keeps going back to him. It's like so weird. And honestly, guys, I read this, and I know one of the things we talked about on this channel is that we weren't going to take Trump's statements as news because his statements change so often. He has no fixed position on Ukraine. It simply changes based on no discernible facts, really. But what I want to take away from this is twofold. The first is that this should be filed as evidence for President Trump's cognitive decline or possible dementia, because when this is very common, if you ever have a loved one who goes through dementia, you know that personality changes like this, impulsiveness, frustration, anger, especially if they were already kind of that person, it's very common for them when they can't remember things, they can't recall certain details, they get frustrated, they get mad, they think you're accusing them of being stupid, and combine that with their impulsivity that can come with this cognitive decline. And this is exactly what you would expect. This is someone who gets confused looking at the map, saying, I don't know where this red line goes, where they don't remember previous things they had been told, where they are impulsive, doing things like shouting and throwing maps. All of this seems to be part of a trend towards I don't know what else to tell you, cognitive decline or dementia. And that's the first takeaway I want you guys to understand from this. But the second one is honestly equally shocking. And this was actually a couple days ago, but it just never really worked its way into my newsfeed until now. Literally, Trump, when he went to Israel, came out and said what we've been saying on this channel the whole time, that Steve Witkoff had no fucking clue what he was doing. Literally, Trump's own words, is speaking to the Israeli Knesset, said, quote, Steve Witkoff had no idea about Russia or Vladimir Putin, quote, and wasn't too interested when he first began negotiating with the Kremlin for a potential peace deal in Ukraine. All right. This explains, of course, why after Witkoff's initial meeting with Putin, he simply came back repeating Putin's talking points, because he literally was learning about Russia and about Russia's concerns with Ukraine from Vladimir Putin himself, someone who has been known for decades to be a master manipulator, a literal KGB agent, right? And of course, Trump said Witkoff is a great negotiator and a great guy. But then he continues, Trump says, quote, I set up a meeting for him, Witkoff, to meet with President Putin, thinking it would be a 15 or 20-minute meeting. Steve had no idea about Russia, no idea about Putin too much, didn't know about politics, and wasn't too interested. But he was really good at real estate, but he had that quality I was looking for. Oh my God. I mean, shout out to President Trump for agreeing with me, for proving me right. The thing that we've been saying on this channel from the jump, that Steve Witkoff had no clue what he was doing and was comically inept. What's wild to me, though, is his disinterest, right? And again, as we've talked about with this Israel-Hamas peace deal, which it's not clear that that's going to hold, but it has the markings of a legitimate international agreement, right? It has a lot of parties triangulated. It has a lot of guarantors. It has a lot of like scales of power that are being balanced. And it has the hallmarks of real international diplomacy. And one of the reasons I attribute that to Jared Kushner is because Jared Kushner has worked tirelessly to build relationships in the Middle East, some of which are corrupt, right? And certainly have enriched him, but he has managed to very effectively, as a Jewish businessman and political fixer, he's walked in both worlds and has really not, through tremendous effort, gotten to really learn over the course of a decade how that region of the world works. And that is a better illustration of how diplomacy can work, where you have this expert in the background working tirelessly over a career to establish something, and then leveraging that knowledge when the people in power need it. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I'm rooting for the Israel-Gaza peace deal to hold. It has the general contours of a sustainable peace deal, and it's because of not 3 months of work, because of a decade of experience building from Kushner. And again, I'm not like some huge Kushner stan, but dude, good work is good work, right? And I want to contrast this with Witkoff, who was literally, as of less than a year ago buying and selling condos in Florida. And you cannot simply transition in the course of a couple months into this world. Certainly not when you're staring off against someone like Vladimir Putin, right? At the very least, you would hoped that someone like Witkoff would at least know how ignorant he was to say, listen, I don't know international diplomacy, but let me talk to a State Department of Russia expert. Well, how do I navigate this? What is it going to go? How is it going to be like? What is Vladimir Putin going to try to do? Like someone who spent, again, their career doing it. And the fact that he didn't do it at all, the fact that he basically just got pumped full of Russian talking points, turned around, and then went on Tucker Carlson and, embarrassing for him, repeated those Russian talking points, was kind of insane. But the real troubling part is that the part of these Russian talking points are infusing into the administration, right? Reportedly, Trump also went out there and was saying things like, oh, well, Russia integrated these territories into its constitution. And they talk about the referendums. Well, obviously, as we discussed, if you're living under military occupation, you can't really have a valid referendum. And you even less can have a valid referendum when you've invaded, driving out, right? Everyone who was pro-Ukrainian and anti-Russian fled the occupied regions. They're living elsewhere in Ukraine. And they were not allowed to vote, but those were their homes. So it's like, that is something that I could have explained to Witkoff. But the fact is that if I could have, there's probably 1,000 people at the State Department, if they were working right now, that could have explained that to them, but not a one of them did because none of them were asked about it. So you're like, at this point, it's funny. It's a little bit of the self-licking ice cream cone, right? They sit there and go, oh, the bureaucracy is useless. Well, it's like, guys, you'd have to use this bureaucracy. Like, it is useless if we ignore the entire diplomatic corps, the entire apparatus of diplomacy, and replace it with condo salesmen who live off of vibes. But the whole thing is just, it's hard to describe. It's hard to see this as anything other than a real sign of either deep dysfunction inside the administration or literal cognitive decline by the president. And I'm inclined to say cognitive decline, one, because we've shown already that that's something that political parties will cover up and hide from us, the American public. Two, Trump is an 80-year-old man who appears to be between severely overweight and obese. And his father had dementia. He has a genetic predisposition to it. Those are three factors that should say, man, you should be on the lookout for this guy to start experiencing cognitive decline. And then you hear stories about impulsive behavior, big lapses in memory, forgetting conversations, inability to learn maybe like new things. And what are you left with? Well, again, some warning signs. Anyway, thanks to guys like Paul Wheeler, Michael Clean, Jeff Davies, Francis Karius, Thomas Anderson, Eugene Cuesta, and all of our Lieutenant Team members. We're going to get you an update, guys, this week, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.